Okay, so what I want to talk about here, maybe title this one like Sticks and Stones. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. And I think anyone who's lived would potentially take issue with that on some level. Because we've all had the experience of we're feeling a certain way. Someone speaks, especially if they speak to us, right, direct words toward us, and then we feel a different way afterwards. And oftentimes the way we feel is more hurt, more afraid, more upset, more angry, more conflicted. We may have gone from a positive feeling to a negative feeling. And over time we could begin to create connections, right, and see patterns of, okay, when someone talks to me about this topic, I tend to get angry. Or when this particular person talks about that topic, I get particularly angry, right? When person X talks about political issue Y, I tend to feel feeling Z. And it's happened multiple times. Or you may say, okay, when persons A, B, and C talk about political topic X, I always feel Y. So it must be the talking of political topic X that's making me feel Y. Or when someone speaks in a certain tone of voice to me, right? That's a big one for me. Right? I feel disrespected, I feel offended, I feel upset, I feel angry, right? They caused my feeling. And what I want to say here, and I'm certainly not the first person to say this, is that that's really not true. There's truth to it, but the way that's being phrased, that it's either the other person's fault or that they were the primary causal factor in the arising of feeling within me, is simply not true. And yet it's actually the basis for all of the interpersonal conflict in the world to some extent, believing that other people's actions are what cause emotional pain in us. And, maybe I was a little too broad brushed there. I mean, there is sometimes when people take out purely physical violence against other people, their act of violence was probably caused by this, but from the perspective of the person who's having the axe buried into their head, I'm not talking about that at all. I'm talking about an emotional hurting, an emotional pain arising from the conduct and particularly the speech of other people. And I want you to just take a moment and to pause and ask yourself two things. Do you believe what I just said? Right? Which again is that what other people say is not the primary cause of our inner emotional reactions, right? That it is not, if it's anyone's fault, it's not their fault, right? First, ask yourself, do you believe that's true? And secondly, assuming you think it's true, ask yourself, how does it work? How does that other person's words, right, or tone of voice, right, or topic that they're addressing, how does that, like on a physical level, how can that actually cause emotional pain in me? Right? And so, let me just be honest, right? I'm here making a video about this. I believe in my heart that what I'm saying is true. And when I'm speaking from a certain position of clarity that I'm not quite at right now, I know it's true. And I can actually kind of see the framework of it in a way that makes it feel kind of obvious. But in day-to-day life, right, I'm driving on the road right now, I can feel some kind of knottings and tightness in my body, some little edginess in me. There's part of me that goes, no, just don't buy that. I don't really believe it. It sounds like something you tell yourself to maybe try to stop being so angry or so judgmental, but no, it's not true. I just had too many experiences, too consistently. Other person does something, causes me to feel it, right? So there's my kind of honest response to question one right now. My response to question two of the dynamic of it would be something like this, right? They speak with a certain tone, right? What I would think of as a disrespectful, short, rude, dismissive tone. Or they talk about the topic, right? My trigger, one of many is Trump, right? Talk about Trump. And that screws with me, right? Because, right? So this is, okay, maybe I'm kind of seeing the answer here to some extent in my answer, but they're wrong, right? Notice what I just did there. I externalized it on them. I pointed a finger, right? They're wrong. Okay, that tone is a tone everyone knows is not courteous, kind, proper, respectful. And so the fact that you're speaking in that tone, already you're in the wrong. Or the fact that you support this political candidate, or you're talking about this topic around me, like, it's wrong to do that. And so what is angry in me is my sense of rightness, right? Which is really righteousness, right? But when I'm trying to actually, get behind my answer here, I would say it's a rightness in me reacting to the wrongness in you, trying to keep itself right, not get corrupted by your jibber-jabber nonsense, and maybe even do you the favor of straightening you out a little bit, right? I mean, Jesus Christ, don't we see this dynamic playing out in individuals and in societies across the world, right? And it's nonsense. It's utter nonsense. It's not true. But let's work our way out from that. And whatever your answers were, I encourage you to try to work your way out in a similar way from there, because just going from the top down and saying it's not true, right? Immediately your defenses are going to go up, and part of you is not going to believe it, and you're going to feel like, okay, well, I'm just being spoon-fed this information. So really try to work your way into and out of this question of how does another person's conduct cause me emotional pain, emotional turmoil, emotional agitation, emotional suffering. So this model here I gave was, hey, there's a rightness in me and there's a wrongness in you, and that wrongness in you agitates the rightness in me and encourages it to protect itself from corruption and to correct the corruption in you. What's crazy is this dynamic is actually like kind of right, but it's almost like the negative of a picture. It's like got everything backwards. So it's really more about repression than about rightness or wrongness. And it's about misdirection as opposed to misdirection and what I'll call evil, as opposed to any kind of correction. So here's what I mean by that. Here's another model. Here's what I think of as kind of the higher-minded model. That the other person exhibits a certain quality in a moment, right? When they're using a certain tone. Let's just say, for example, someone uses kind of like a frivolous and loose with the facts tone, which me being kind of anal about being factually correct and being like socially appropriate, right? Whole another video. When I hear someone talking and they're just kind of like throwing out facts either that I know are wrong or sound kind of sloppy to me, I'm like, like I'm on edge, right? And I start poising. I start kind of gathering my whips. What I think is actually happening here is this person, what I really think is happening is this person is coming into my life as a gift to me. And the way they act as a gift to me is they demonstrate a certain quality, which then invites me to recognize that I am repressing that quality in myself, right? Because in order to be the person who's up on the facts and doesn't speak loosely about the facts and is correct and, qualifies and hedges all the statements the right way, right? This reliable truth teller that I pretend myself to be, right? Pretension, I pretense myself to be this way. To pretense yourself, right? To be that way, to conceive of yourself that way, you need to repress those impulses or arisings in yourself that want to be more fast and loose with the truth, right? We all have that within us. I think within us, we really have the potential on a deep level for all forms of manifestation and expression. And yet we kind of like a bonsai, we prune and trim away certain ones to create the shape that we want, or that we think others want, or we think that we want. And so if I'm Mr. Anal about the facts, right, which is again its own little irony, and I see someone displaying the opposite behavior, what I think that actually does is that person's freedom to express that offends my repressor. It goes, whoa, whoa, whoa. I can't be having my field, having that freedom to be that way. And what I think it does is that repressed energy in me that wants to be a little faster and looser with the facts, right? Why let the facts get in the way of a good story? Spin some yarns, throw some stuff out there. Hey, let someone correct me if I'm wrong, So be it. I'm just kind of speaking, sharing what I got going on, what I believe. That's in me too. What I'm seeing in the other is in me. But because I'm the way I am, right, all anal about the facts, I shove that down. I repress it. I deny it. I punish it. I keep it in check. Or at least I tell myself I do. Really what I do is I shove it into the darkness where it then operates there. So anyway, I see that other person. What I think from my ego is they're wrong, I'm right. I need to protect myself from their corruption and maybe do a favor to them and correct the corruption in them. Is really, oh my God, that's a part of me I'm seeing in them. And it's alerting me to the two things, my system of self-oppression and repression, and to that same aspect of self in them, right, that more free-flowing, loosey-goosey, that's in me and that is screaming out for recognition, right, crying out to be let out of the darkness, right, to be brought to the light. And what's so wild about this is what happens next, right? What I call the involvement of evil, from a Buddhist perspective, you might call Mara. From a Christian perspective, you might call sin. What I define primarily as the insistent misattribution of suffering's cause, right? Misdirection as to why certain things are happening or how to resolve what's happening. A confuser, right? A dark wizard or warlock who just keeps us constantly twisted around as to what's going on. And if it's doing its job well, keeps us confidently wrong, right? Basically re-perpetuates the Dunning-Kruger effect and keeps us not only backwards, but convinced that we're facing the right direction. And so here's how I think that works in this context. So I see the other person, I see them exhibiting that quality. That part of myself cries out for recognition, right? The same recognition that I'm having of seeing in the other, it says, hey, recognize that in me too. See me, honor me, acknowledge me. What evil does, evil comes in and has a series of mirrors. And you can think of them as happening in steps. The first mirror is the mirror of externalization, right? So I see the quality in the other person. The person's going like, yeah, Joan of Arc was a great British hero, something like that. I'm going, What's already happened is I recognize that in the other. Oh, this person's being a little fast and loose with the facts. And immediately the mirror, right? I go, well, what? Oh, God, why is this creating an agitation in me? And it, with clear seeing, right, I would be able to go into insight and I would see, oh, its twin in me is singing like a bird, right? Perhaps not just to say, hey, you, Joe, recognize me, but hey, I see my twin out there. That's me out there, right? I mean, maybe making it about me was skipping a step, right? That little bird in me nestled in my ribs where I've repressed it is calling out to the bird in the other person, saying, hey, I sing that same note as you do. With clear seeing, right, without the mirrors of evil, I look down, I recognize that, and I go, what a fool I'm being. Let this bird free. And notice, what that doesn't mean is that I then impersonate the other person, or I then shove being, careful about the truth down into the hole and pull this up, and now I'm the opposite of how it was. That's like a counterphobia, right? Instead, bring that looseness into the fullness expression of your being, trusting that it's just going to be a drop of water in the pond. It's not going to change or wreck everything. And that's a mirror of evil a couple down the road, that catastrophizing of things. With clear seeing, we look down, we realize, oh my God, the reason I'm so agitated is because that person's got a quality that I've been repressing in myself, so let me do a little softening right now. I'm not going to be a hero and go swinging a sword. I'm not going to go Alexander the Great on myself and try to knock down my system of oppression, right? That's just a new system of oppression. I'm going to take it as an invitation to soften, to relax, do a little gentle inner apology, do a little gentle inner contrition work. Don't get hung up on that, right? Let that go. Channel a little positivity, channel a little nurturing, see if I can feel the physical place in my body where that repressed energy has taken its nest, where I've caged it, where I've chained it, and can see if through the introduction of some soft, compassionate energy, I can heal it and release it and finally have some resolution. Allow myself to come back into a fuller expression of who I am instead of this overly bonsai'd version of who I am. But no, when we still have evil rife in our body, or we're under the influence of evil, or we're not recognizing evil's work at that moment, and again, I don't mean evil in like the kind of way. I mean evil in that like fucking with you way. Like and sorry, I just took this out of PG, but blipping with you way, messing with you way, screwing with you way, like deliberately trying to confuse you. Other videos, I'll maybe talk about that, or maybe, I ramble in these videos, so maybe I'll get to that later. Anyway, so, other person exhibits the quality, the little bird in me that has that same quality sings out. With clear seeing, I look down and I recognize that connection and heal. No, I look down and the mirror of evil points out to that other person and says, no, there's the problem. There's the cause. That's why you're hurting. They didn't. How do you know? Because guess what? They talked that way in front of you, and now you're feeling that way, right? X, arrow, Y, arrow, Z, right? They talked, boom, arrow, cause, X, I felt this way, good, to Z, now I'm feeling and thinking this way. It all stems from them. Where's the problem? Them. No. Incorrect, right? Actually, impossible and incorrect. So, if when we look down, we realize we're looking in the mirror of evil, and the way you're going to tell is you're going to be looking back at the other person, right, and seeing them as the cause of your suffering, them as the cause of your troubles. In the deep mirror game, you may even begin to project onto this person causes and suffering that you had before this person even came into your life. And because we, as compassionate beings, we as experiencers and operators who want ourselves to live lives free of suffering, right, full of joy, right, we're trying to find a way to get rid of all this suffering and all this pain. And it's so annoying and frustrating to be uncertain. And so when something so confidently points and says, there it is, there he is, there she is, there's your problem, there's your villain, right there, follow my finger, right there, honey, there's your problem. God, that confidence is so intoxicating sometimes. And for that uncertain self who's really more slow-working, compassionate, realizes that getting rid of pain is really more of an internal process, and one that isn't done through deliberate action, but is really done more through the cultivating of certain attitudes and energies. What chance does that stand in a debate against something that won't shut up, keeps pounding the podium, and every time just keeps pointing again and again and again, them, that's why. So that's the first mirror, the mirror of externalization. And so, when you see this mirror in action, I like to encourage doing a double move. First, tilt that mirror, think of it like that mirror, like a round mirror that's in a frame that's on a swivel. Turn it around and point it within, right? And then allow it to go not just within toward you, right? Because then your ego is going to take it on, and the blamer will then just point the finger at you. Point it up to God, right? Or if you don't believe in God, point it to the unfolding of creation, right? The Big Bang, which was the original cause, right? In our physical universe, say. Point it out. Get it out. Don't point it at them, and don't point it at you, right? Point it out, right? Get that light shining somewhere else. Because you're not really actually trying to identify an external cause. It's internal, right? And you're not trying to put anyone on the spot, right? This isn't the third degree. We're not shining a light in their eyes, not giving them any water or a sip of soda until they answer our questions. That's the whole wrong game, the whole wrong framing. So, we see that mirror of externalization at work. We see that internal finger pointing its little bone at the other person. And we say, nonsense, silly, I don't believe you. Now, a little side note, I'm making a video about this. I believe this very strongly. I struggle with this every single day. It's not as easy as thinking it or trying it. May you have better luck than I do. May you on the first try get it right and never get it wrong again. But if you don't, please know you're not alone. Please know that we all struggle with this. It's so much easier said than done, so much easier seen than realized. But that with the work of time, I will tell you, it does get easier, it does get better. And so the work pays off. Okay, so let's say we've had the good fortune of getting past the first mirror. We accept, okay, yes, I understand that this other person played a causal role in my triggering, but their causal role was not that they caused it. Instead, they actually invited me to wound myself. Okay, so what do I mean by that? This is kind of getting into the second mirror, I think. We may both kind of realize what the second mirror is at the same time here. Okay. So why do I hurt? Right? It's like, okay, work with me on the whole bird theory, right? Person's got the little bird in them, the bird of being fast and loose with the facts in my example. I've got that bird in me, which I'm repressing, shoving away into the darkness, tucking into a corner of my body, not presenting in the pruned bonsai that I present to myself and others in a bid for worthiness. But where's the pain coming from? So, what I believe happens, and this is where the workings of evil are so intricate and so fast, it really has taken a lot of attentiveness and patience for me to even kind of cobble this theory together. And here's what I've got so far. External quality mirroring internal quality. Internal quality sings out for healing and recognition. Internal state of evil, which is really just a chemical state. Call it kind of an addictive pattern in the body. Recognizes that as a threat to its hegemony. Its hegemony is the bonsai, right? Its hegemony is the pruned, bound foot. It's the itself that it has created through the hard work of self-repression. It is the self that you can be proud of because you made yourself. How did you make yourself? The story it tells us is you made yourself by achieving things in the world. What it really means is I made myself by destroying, really hiding parts of myself to bring to the light those parts of myself that I deem acceptable and shoving all that unacceptable stuff away. The pain is call it the government, call it the evil empire, right? The dark side of the force. Seeing the threat of that singing bird, because it is a threat to the hegemony, right? If the bird is allowed to sing, the heart in its compassion will eventually open up, and that open heart creates the very field that allows for the bird's liberation. Evil won't allow that. So before the heart even has a chance to try to open, evil swoops in, right? And actually creates a pain in that same spot. Basically stabs us, right? Stabs us right in that spot. And what was a song, a call for healing, is now this angsty, painful, edgy, unwanted, undesirable thing. And do you see the genius of how evil works? Because what it's now done is now created a correspondence between story and feeling. The story is that thing I shoved away there is unacceptable. It's bad. I locked it in the basement for a reason, Joe. Okay? And guess what? Now that you're recognizing, you've got past the first mirror, okay? Good for you. You're now realizing it's an internal state. Realize this, it's terrible, and that's why it's there. And guess how you can tell it's terrible? How does it feel? How does it feel, Joe? It doesn't feel good, does it? It hurts. You don't want to feel that anymore. You don't want to feel that anymore. Get away from that. Punish this person. Punish this idiot, this jerk, for making me feel this way. Why? Even if I've realized, right? This part's so crazy. Even if I've realized that they weren't the primary cause of it, I need to deter them from activating this in me again. Because I, and this is the untold story, have not yet developed enough internal skill to recognize the dynamic at play. First, the dynamic of the other person awakening that quality in me. Secondly, the act of the evil empire actually self-inflicting a wound in the very place of the oppression to then sell the story that the oppression is evil. It's basically like a sabotage and a frame job on the oppressed energy. which then again combined with its story of why the oppression is bad. Well, you've got a bad feeling now, and there's your villain. Enough said. And so even if you stop believing that the other person was the cause of it, now you can at least justify abusing them, right? Punishing them, setting them straight, under the story of, and this may be the untold story, Jesus Christ, just don't let them do that to me again. Even if it's quote unquote my fault or my doing, I don't want to feel that anymore. I'm sick of stabbing my damn self. So for the love of God, stop having people take actions that trigger this domino effect within myself. But the ego doesn't like that. The ego doesn't like that story because that's a story of weakness. So the ego will then jump back up to mirror number one, spin it around and say, it was your fault after all, you jerk. Person X. It's your fault after all. Now I feel like there's a third mirror. And this is part of the issue. The thing is that I get into these elaborate metaphors, and I sometimes kind of lose my thread in the labyrinth a little bit, so I appreciate you bearing with me on this. I guess the third mirror is what to do about it, right? And this is, if we have to tip a hat to evil, I shouldn't say have to. If we can doff our cap to evil, give it a little bit of a wink and say, you are one impressive and effective operator. You carry out your objective with profound skill, evil. Your objective being to keep me confused, to keep me in pain, suffering, to keep me in this game of self-repression. Because what evil will do is, I get past the mirror of externalization, and I get past this internal self-sabotage thing of mirroring the story to the feeling, right? Bad feeling. I feel a stabbing pain. And I'm hearing this story that there's this evil thing inside myself that I've buried, that I'm keeping a lid on, that I'm keeping down. Thank God I'm saving the world and myself from this terrible thing, which is making me feel terrible right now. Correspondent, subjective, correlative. Let's say I have the good fortune to get past that. Then it's like, well, what do I do about it? I've got this repression. What do I do? And I mentioned earlier that what I believe the wise practice is harmonizing your field of energy, bringing as much equanimity, compassion, positivity as you can to it, being attentive without fixating, without obsessing, basically creating a field of unconditional and uninsistent friendliness. Right? You're there for it, you're available, you're attentive, but you're not pushing it, you're not prodding it, you're not looking at your watch saying how long are you taking. You're putting no expectations on this energy, on this repressed energy. That, I believe, is how it actually uncoils and heals. But evil, this gifted SOB, which is us too, any separation of evil is evil too, so I'll tip my cap to it once again. But this particularly genius move of evil is evil then immediately pivots around. It's kind of like this Cheshire cat, mirror-faced thing that can then assume any form. And that same thing that first said it's that person's fault, and then pivoted to, it's the repressed feelings' fault, it's the villain. Now, we'll either say, hey, Joe, it's your fault. This thing here is, you're unworthy of fixing it, right? Or it's a reflection of your unfixable mess-uppedness, your terribleness, all this stuff. It could play that game. So basically make me feel worthless or corrupt and therefore deserving of having unresolved bad feeling. Or even just unresolved feeling, even if it's not particularly painful at that moment, right? You deserve this because that's what you are. You're unresolved. You're bad. You're terrible. Therefore, this is terrible. That stuff. Or, right, so that's the shame game. Pride and shame are just two sides of the same coin. It'll say, okay, hey, now you get to fix this. You get to be the hero. You get to swoop in, right, and save the day. What should you do? Get to the bottom of it. Speculate. Think about it. Start thinking about your past. How did this get here? Why is this here? Right? Now notice the way that the untruth and the truth can be almost back to back is kind of wild sometimes. Contemplating that, right? Approaching those questions in a spirit of open-ended contemplation without any insistence at getting to an answer within a particular session, I believe can be fruitful. But that's not how evil works. Evil will prod and poke and say, have you figured it out yet? What is it? Hurry up, it's getting worse. The window is closing, you better take care of this, right? So it'll try to make you a hero by turning you into detective to figure it out. Or it'll turn you into a hero by treating you like a sweeper. It'll say, okay, go in there, physically feel into that space and drive it out. Bring in the light, bring in a torch. This is kind of like being like the someone going to a bat cave and bringing a torch and driving all those nasty bats out of the cave. Nothing against bats, I love bats, but I'm kind of playing the character of evil here, right? Go in and drive them away, the unclean, the unfit, the unsuitable, drive them out. And this is kind of that toxic positivity we hear about sometimes, which is, okay, well, I'm going to go in there, I'm going to bring all my light, I'm going to bring all my favorite memories from childhood and all the great little slogans I've got now, and maybe I heard this great little thing the other day, and so I'm going to start just throwing that at it. I'm going to go into this space, into this, little wedge between my third and fourth rib where I'm feeling this pain right now, and I'm going to flood the zone with positivity. I'm going to drive this thing away. This is the third mirror, which is treating it as a problem to fix, right? Treating it as a mess to clean up. Treating it as a pest to extricate and exterminate. Treating it as a dragon to slay. All these things. The only dragon to slay, quote unquote, is actually evil, not any repressed feelings. And in the deepest practice, we don't even accept that framing for evil. Another video, or maybe something I threw on the end of this video. But so anyway, let me briefly retrace my steps and see if I can put a cap on this. Right? How does somebody else hurt us emotionally? Right? With their actions, or their speech, or their tone. I'm not talking here about the physical infliction of abuse. I'm talking about someone doing a verbal act that then results in the feeling of pain within us. And what I believe is that there's 3 levels of deception at play that reinforce this sense that it's the other person's fault, right? That their words hurt me, that their tone hurt me, that their choice of topic hurt me. And the first mirror is externalization, right? It's not my fault, it's your fault. The second level is kind of villainizing the repressed pain, right? Oh, well, it's a bad thing. It's good that it's repressed. And you can tell because it feels so bad. Can you feel when I'm stabbing a knife into this place, you feel how bad that is? Yeah, that's the repressed energy. That's how bad it is. And then the third is you've now gotten to the point where you've realized, oh my God, this is a repressed energy within me and this is an opportunity to heal it, but we fumble the chance with unskillful conduct. And the reason we resort to that unskillful conduct is Mara, the great whisperer, has now appealed to our ego and our pride and said, oh, well, you know how to fix this. You know how to be the hero, and kind of tricks us into Don Quixoteing, right, tilting at our windmill, right, taking up our armor and our spear and charging at this thing as though charging at something we've repressed, treating something that we've repressed as a problem is going to fix it. Again, these things are so silly from the position of remove, and yet so difficult to see and so difficult to recognize in the heat of the moment. And so, put a little cap on it, recognize that those people or situations that come in our lives and their doing causes the experience of an inner agitation or pain within us. See it as a gift, right? Cultivate, muster, and invite as much gratitude as you can in the moment to try to counteract the forces of evil that are going to kind of unspool themselves. See if you can recognize the mirrors of evil at work. See if you can watch it tip your direction, right? You're looking inside for the cause and see if you can notice it pointing you outward. See if you can notice it pointing you toward a pain that it itself is causing inside of you. And see if you can notice it pointing you, directing you toward playing hero ball. And with that recognition and with the cultivating of gratitude, that simultaneous recognize the dynamic, right, and cultivate gratitude, I think that's a relatively simple but effective kind of 2-step, I don't even call that countermeasure. Treat it as more kind of an unconditional gift to yourself. to see those moments and actually transform those moments from moments where, I mean, think about the terrible things we do to other people in this confusion. We kill other people, right? We will kill someone for saying the wrong thing to us. And even if we haven't done it, we all, I shouldn't speak for all of us, but there's a lot of us out there who know that feeling. That instant homicidal rage you will feel towards someone. And no matter how quickly you kind of put it back in your pocket or put it away, you know it's there, right? Think about how intense that is. How much harm physically we do to others or emotionally we do to ourselves, putting ourselves through these roller coasters of misguided and negative emotions based on a reactivity to another person for something that isn't their fault, right? And so the gratitude you can cultivate preemptively and unconditionally is the gratitude of recognition. Recognizing I'm not going to buy into that nonsense. I'm not going to believe that it's their fault, no matter how convincingly the mirror keeps shining on them. I'm also not going to blame my repressed energy. And I'm not going to see myself as a hero who's there to somehow fix or, fix or correct my repressed energy. Gratitude, recognition, right? With gratitude, we can get that positivity, which can allow some of that repressed energy to finally find some healing and some looseness and some acceptance and some freedom. Notice how we're not directing gratitude toward the energy because we don't want to get into some story about what the energy is. It may come to us what the energy was. We may get a flash or a recognition of it. We don't want to dwell there, right? Because that's where evil is going to come back in and say, oh, it's going to start pointing mirrors at people in the past. Humble yourself before the speed and resourcefulness of evil. Preempt gratitude and reinvest in it unconditionally and activate your recognition. See if you could spot the mirrors. Congratulate yourself and have gratitude for the recognition. And as much as you can just create kind of a self-sustaining by your bootstraps well of gratitude, you're going to avoid a lot of the pitfalls that the reactivity would cause, that the misattribution of suffering's cause would create, and you can actually begin to undo the karmic pattern of storing up more and more negative energy by responding unskillfully to the other person's prompt, and instead, oh my God, this person came into my life as a blessing. 42,162 times I've been triggered by this and blamed the other person and actually just repressed myself further and created more negativity in me. This time, right? You may have gotten me the first 42,000, whatever I said, but this time, I'm tipping the balance the other way. This time, right? I'm moving out of debt and toward credit. I'm moving away from this negativity and this confusion toward a sense of clarity and a sense of resolution and a sense of positivity. Gratitude and recognition. Let's start there.